Hey everybody, this is Kelly Nielsen with Grace for Living After Loss. And on this channel, we discuss all things related to grief. What does it look like? What does it feel like? But most importantly for you, we share tips, tools, and resources on how to move through grief and get back to living a life that you love. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how grief affects our physical bodies. And more importantly than learning how it affects our bodies, we're going to be talking with Rachel Williamson to learn tips and tools on how to take care of your body and how to start or accelerate the healing and restoration process that needs to happen in our bodies. Because grief, if you're here watching this video, you already know that grief messes with your body in a big way. So I'm thrilled to have Rachel Williamson. She is the owner of Firm Foundation Health and Wellness, and she is, I wrote this down, a nutritional therapy practitioner, which is a mouthful. So first of all, Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, I'm super excited. It's so fun to be able to talk about this and how to help others.
So why don't you, for those who are watching who maybe don't understand what nutritional therapy practitioner means, why don't you, as best you can in simple terms, explain to folks what you do?
Yes, so it definitely is a mouthful. I sometimes refer to myself as an NTP to kind of make it a little shorter, but what that means is I focus on how to teach other people and coach them through retraining their body, how to become more in tune with its innate ability to be able to heal, and that is focused through nutrition and lifestyle approach.
I love that. And that's so in line with what we do on this channel too, because we talk a lot about how our minds specifically adopt patterns, right? And part of recovering from grief and loss is to learn how to interrupt the negative, harmful patterns and how to replace those patterns and replace those habits with things that are healing and healthy. So I feel like just your mindset around that goes hand in hand with how we operate here. But okay, so today we want to go over how grief affects our bodies. And that was the thing that still to this day was most surprising to me when I went through grief and loss, is I feel like nobody prepared me or nobody told me how physically draining, how physically exhausting, and how physically, impaired or hindered I would be. I did not expect it to take that much of a toll on my body. So can we start by you just explaining a little bit maybe why that happens or why we physically struggle so much when we're going through grief?
So when you're going through grief, it's a huge trauma on your body as well. So it's important, as Kelly mentions often, is like focusing on the emotional side and how to repair the brain's neuroplasticity, but also the physical effects as well. Because there is, like, again, that emotional side is taking up a lot of your brain power and a lot of your thought, but the physical side is really impacting you. And sometimes when you're going through the seasons of grief, your body's just kind of on this survival mode. And so you don't really feel the effects of it until later on. Sometimes you can feel it during the process, but it's just your body holding on to that stress. So what's actually happening within your body is, so your adrenal glands they're right above your kidneys. So they're in charge of creating a hormone called cortisol. And so if you think a long time ago, people would be hunting and gathering time, so many years ago. None of us really lived through that time, but our body was designed to be able to create this hormone, cortisol, whenever we're in states of high stress. So I like to give this example often. If you think of a tiger sitting in your living room, you hope that your body would get up and run, right? You don't want to be attacked by this tiger. So it is natural and important that your cortisol, that stress hormone, is going to be released to then give your body the energy it needs to leave that living room so you're not attacked by this tiger. And so when you're going through seasons of grief or stress or whatever that may be that's on your body, but in this situation would be grief, your body is constantly trying to fight off that tiger, and it's not designed to be put in that position. And so when you have seasons of chronic stress on your body, whether that be, it can then have the ripple effect of increasing inflammation within the body or impacting your gut health and just your sleep. And so just you see those negative effects start to outpour when your body's in that chronic stage of stress with that hormone cortisol continuing to be released. So, yeah.
I love that analogy. I think that helps so many people understand what's happening inside their body. And so let's use that as we go through this video. The tiger's not real. The tiger's not there, right? We need our body to realize that the tiger's not real. We need our body to calm down and be restored. And so I know we have a list of some of the ways, a lot of ways that people are affected by grief. And we're going to kind of go through some strategies and tips, or potentially supplements or food, just things that they can do for each of these different things. And you mentioned the first one, which is the one I hear most often, is just, man, people's sleep really gets messed with when you're grieving. Most people have a hard time falling asleep in the first place, or they wake up in the middle of the night, or they wake up in the morning just feeling like they haven't even slept, just totally exhausted. And so what are your tips for restoring sleep balance?
Yeah, so sleep is definitely a huge piece of just our health journey, because so while we're sleeping is when our body is detoxifying and removing anything from the day prior and kind of giving us a new slate for that next morning. And so when our sleep's impacted, that is a huge toll on our health in general. And so when I am thinking about sleep and how to be able to support someone or myself to be able to improve my sleep, I typically will focus on the biggest thing is just trying to create a sleep routine. And so like turning your phone off an hour before bed, incorporating good healing herbal teas. So some that I love to focus on would be like chamomile or passion flower, or there's one from traditional medicine that's called nighty-night tea. So it's a good blend of some different herbs, but just trying to help prepare the body for a good night's sleep and removing any form of stimulation within the 90 minutes before going to bed, just to help the body be able to recuperate and be able to prepare your body for that sleep.
I totally agree. And we often coach our clients along these lines as well, because from purely a neurological standpoint, one of the things that your body craves and thrives on is structure and patterns. Your body and your mind are always looking for the pattern. They're always looking for efficiencies. They're always looking for shortcuts. And so anything we can do, and one thing grief does is destroys our patterns, right? We have this predictable life and we had a predictable person in our life and they're gone. And so we're trying to reconcile what that means for us. And so it throws all of our patterns. It's part of the reason why our brains get overwhelmed and flooded, because we've lost our predictable patterns. So I highly encourage, if you're struggling with sleep, not only going to bed at the same time every day, but trying to wake up the same time every day. And really anything that you can do the same time every day. If you can eat your meals at the same time every day, maybe go for a walk, or any kind of routine that you can put into your day is going to help you neurologically and, subsequently physically, to restore that pattern and structure. And I think I've shared as well, just a couple quick tips. If you're having trouble falling asleep in the first place, a couple of exercises. Well, as Rachel mentioned, first of all, turn off the TV, stay off your phone for at least an hour to 90 minutes before you go to bed. That's stimulating all that activity in your brain, and we need our brains to calm down and be prepared for rest. So if you are laying down and your mind is racing, you can't get your mind to calm down, two quick ideas. One is to count backwards from 100, which doesn't sound that complicated, and it's not, but picture the number in your mind's eye. And when I used to do this, I would always make a point to picture each number differently. So if I pictured the number 100 as red 100, then 99, I would make the 9, 1 blue and 1 green. I challenge myself to make each number look different. But the key is, as you're counting down, if you can't see that number pictured, you have to start back over at 100. That's one idea. But the second idea, which was the one that really helped me personally, is to listen to either jazz or classical music and strain to just listen for one instrument. So if you're listening to classical music, try to just hear the flute or the violin, something like that. It is going to cause your brain to try to focus so much that it's just going to get tired out. It's kind of like giving a toddler something to keep them busy and tire them out. It's the same kind of idea for our brain. So that should help your brain to quiet down and then eventually fall asleep. But the beautiful part about it is, if you do that every night, pretty soon your brain is going to understand and interpret that when it hears that classical music or that jazz music, it's going to instantly start slowing down. Because those of you who've been watching our videos or walking with us, you know that it takes 21 days to implant a thought, and it takes 63 days for that thing to become automatic. That's the length of time it takes for something to move from your conscious to subconscious mind. So the good news for you is if you start doing this for 63 days, it will become automatic and you don't have to do it anymore. Your body will tell itself what to do, and it will understand the cues that it's time to calm down, it's time to slow down, it's time to get ready and go to sleep. And I know, and I think Rachel agrees with this, that I always start with sleep, right? Like if you're trying to pick what area of your health or that you want to work on or pay attention to or tend to when you're grieving, if your sleep is not solid, start with your sleep, because that's kind of like a domino effect. If you're not getting good sleep, it's going to make everything else worse. Likewise, if you're getting good sleep, that's going to help support everything you try to do the next day, right? So do not pass, do not collect $200, start with your sleep and go from there. So those are our tips for sleeping. We want to make sure that you're getting that in. And then another one that people talked about is having symptoms or just really feeling like run down. And I'm sure that's just emotionally how being emotionally drained wears on our body. But from a nutrition standpoint, what can you recommend for people to do to help not feel like they have the flu or not feel so run down? What can they do about that?
It's to give a little background on why sometimes we do experience those things. So when you're going through that, as I mentioned earlier, it's a really big impact on our digestive system. And so our digestive system and our immune system are very heavily correlated. And so the flu-like symptoms could be coming from that root cause. Not always, but some areas to be able to focus and emphasize on through a nutrition standpoint would just be thinking that, like, if you were to, the often go-to would be like vitamin C, having your oranges, but like citrus fruits are really great for help with that, but also focusing on some more easier foods to digest. And so my go-to personally would be like soups and having more broth within your meals, or like a stew, because the meat's more broken down a little bit while it's cooking, so it's easier to digest on the body. So just thinking of more comforting but like soothing foods that would be more healing for the body, because like when you are in that stage of grief, it can be harder for the body to focus on digestion. And so having things like soup or stews or just warm meals like that can be supportive for that process and kind of help you feel less gross and flu-like. So just supporting the immune system to the best of your ability.
I love that. That's a good overall note, is to just recognize that your body's been through it and is going through it, right? So to be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, and don't expect that you're going to just feel normal in 2 days or 2 weeks or whatever. This is a process that you're going to have to go through. And I know, I mean, when I hear you talk about soups, the idea of making a soup, even right now, totally healthy or whatever. So we want to encourage you as a grief coach. I want to encourage you that this is a great opportunity for people to help you, right? So many people say when someone passes away, they're like, oh, let me know if you need anything, or I'm here if you need anything. And we don't know what to ask for. We don't know what we need because we're just honestly going through it and trying to get through the day. So this is an excellent opportunity to let people love you well during this season. So have some recipes. If you have a favorite soup, if you have something that you know you really enjoy, let people make meals for you and help you in that way. And I know this is a great segue. Rachel actually compiled some great recipes and some great supplements, along with a bit of like a meal planning calendar that you can put together, or you can hand off to somebody else to help you in that way. And so we will have a link to that below, because I know that when you're grieving, everything is overwhelming and it feels hard to just get out of bed, much less think about what is the best thing to put in your body and have the strength and coordination to go to the grocery store and make food or whatever. We're not suggesting that you need to do that, but what we do want to do is educate you and inform you with the little tweaks that you can do or someone else can do for you that's going to just help you to feel better faster, right? So Don't feel like you need to do it all yourself. That's the nugget that we have there. I was just looking at our list of laundry of things. The other thing we want to mention, and so Rachel, if you can give tips for, I know none of us drink enough water. I'm just going to say, I don't drink enough water. Most people aren't drinking enough water, even when they're not grieving. And when you're going through grief, you're even more dehydrated. So what are practical ways and tips for hydration and getting good amounts of water in?
Yeah, water is definitely top of the list, honestly, for one of the things I look at first, because it usually is something we just kind of put off to the side for like, oh yeah, I know I need water, but like it's okay. Like I'll be okay. I made it another day without drinking a glass of water, but it's really like what our body runs off of. That's how our minerals get to the different areas they need, and the nutrients get to the different spots they need to be able to create and build the different cells or the proteins that need to be used within our body. And so when we are dehydrated, that's when your body's kind of crying out for help, because it can't move things, like, because that is the source that is used to be able to move things around. And so for me, it's hard to give a number of like, this is a good amount of water for one to drink, because it really depends on your size and where you're located and your exercise level, because a lot of different things will impact the amount of water that our body needs. But for me personally, like with my activity level, I should be trying to shoot for around like 90 fluid ounces of water, which is quite a bit of water when we think about how many we normally drink. So like your normal water bottle is like 16 to 20 ounces. And so getting to 90 is going to take several water bottles. And so it's, rather than making that like an intimidating thought, it could either be, depending on how your mind's wired, but for me, I kind of like goals and like challenges. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can finish one water bottle before I have my next meal. Be able to, whatever that may be, but creating goals and challenges, if that's something that is exciting for you or if that's how you work. But otherwise, just more of a practical tip. So every morning I start my day off with this thing called Soleil water. So it's just kind of fun to say, but it's very simple. So what I do is I take a mason jar and I fill it up with some filtered water and put rock salts in the bottom. And so what those rock salts do is they concentrate that water, and then it's filled with electrolytes, pretty much from natural electrolytes. And so you just put a little bit of that in your water, and then it's going to be able to help your body absorb it. And so if you did forget to drink water the rest of the day, that you at least were able to absorb that amount that you drank in the morning. And if that's too much to even think about trying to add on this new fancy Soleil water, just putting a little bit of Himalayan sea salt in a couple of your glasses throughout the day can be a great way to be able to absorb that water intake.
Where does somebody even get rock salt rocks? Where does one find these?
Yeah, if you just look up rock salts, I know they sell them on Amazon. There's a couple good brands. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but if you just look up rock salts on Google, you'll be able to find several different options. And so they are just huge rocks, about yay big, of just the concentrated salt. And so you probably could make the same thing with like just regular old Himalayan salt. But I've personally seen a lot of other people, and I do myself, use the full rock salt.
So then you just put a tablespoon or something into your regular water?
Just like a teaspoon or two. You don't need to put a whole lot, because it's a very concentrated salt water. So it's like you just took a little bit out of the ocean, but it's filtered and clean. And then you just put a little bit of that into your water. And you can kind of tell the amount that you're needing, because it'll taste like the same glass of water could taste really salty to one person and not as salty to another person, depending on where their levels are. So it's interesting, but you'll be able to tell. I usually put a couple teaspoons in. I honestly don't measure it. I just do a little dump, but it's, yeah, about a couple teaspoons. I need.
Awesome. And then I want to circle back to more about nutrition, because I know eating, I find that people tend to do 1 to 2 extremes when they're grieving, right? Like either we don't eat at all, we've completely lost our appetite, and so we eat nothing, Or we kind of go the other extreme and we are just binging on comfort foods because we're just, whether it's ice cream or alcohol or fried foods or whatever. And so can you talk a little bit about what's the strategy for either or both that you could eat in a way that's not causing more damage?
So that's the recommendation I would have for those do kind of overlap a little bit. So when we think about that cortisol level that we talked about more towards the beginning, so when we are in states of highs or lows, that's kind of what's impacting our cognitive brain to be like, oh, you need more food if we're in a low, because then our body is wanting to get back up to be able to have that kind of energy to run away from the tiger again. So when we are in those fluctuations, that's kind of how this impacts the binge eating or not craving or wanting food at all. And so through that, I would suggest having smaller meals throughout the day. So like 4 times a day, you just have smaller meals that you feel like you can manage. But if we're talking about the person who's not really having much of an appetite, I think that would be a really good recommendation for them, just starting off small and having quality proteins and fats or something within that, so you're feeling satiated, but you're having to like eat a lot of food for the nutrients that your body's needing. And then if you're on the other spectrum of binge eating all the time and just having that be your suppressor for emotions, I would challenge you to try to look elsewhere. Is there another activity that you can do to help your body feel comforted within that, whether that be journaling or going on a walk, or having a conversation with someone, calling someone on the phone. But then through a nutrition standpoint, having those, focusing on proteins and fats would be the best recommendation I can think of, because when you are living off of carbs, that's when your body is going to be reaching for more energy or not feeling as satiated. And so you can lean in more towards the binge eating because your body's wanting more nutrients and wanting more things to be able to satisfy its needs at that time.
I get it. It makes sense. I'm listening to this through a lens of someone who's grieving and feeling overwhelmed by everything. So I think the point, the moral of the story is to do small things in moderation, whether that be changes that you're trying to make for the positive or just remembering to feed your body or drink enough water, not trying to tackle everything all at once, but understanding that your body's really going through it, right? And so you need to do what you can to support that. And I know when we spoke before, my encouragement for anybody watching this video is I'm going to give you 2 pieces of encouragement. One is to pick one thing that you're going to implement, right? So if it's in like doing a nighttime routine to try to get your sleep straight, whether it's being more intentional, setting an alarm on your phone for the water intake, recruiting a friend to help you stock your fridge with healthy meals. That's another thing, whether you do it or a friend does it. Meal prep, right? And doing it when you do have a day with good energy, to make the most of that energy and make some soup or things ahead of time so that they're quick and easy. So when you have a tough day. But so my encouragement number 1 is to do something, pick the one thing that you're going to work on through this. And my encouragement number 2 is to recruit the help, to invite people in to help you with this, because I can guarantee you that there are a slew of people around you that are desperate to want to help you in some capacity, but they don't know how. And so if we can give them easy ways that they can come alongside and love us well during this season, then that's going to be a blessing to them, right? As well as yourself. So don't get overwhelmed by the information. Take what you can, implement what you can, and recruit help along the way for sure. And also just remembering that this is a season of recovery for you, right? This is going to take a little bit to recover, and it's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to have to do some things differently for a little while until you can start feeling back to yourself. Rachel, any other kind of like high level, what would you say for folks that are grieving in terms of, we didn't talk much about physical fitness. Let's touch on that real quick. I know when you're dealing with grief and loss and you just feel so heavy and sad, and the last thing you want to do is most likely move or work out. Actually, I see people do 2 extremes again. People either are laying on the couch and they're not getting off the couch, or there's this other camp of people who are like, I'm going to take kickboxing and I'm going to like just funnel all of my stuff, and it can, like, in an unhealthy way, right? They can just obsessively exercise to try to avoid dealing with the emotions. And so what are some tips for just purely getting yourself off the couch and making sure that your body moves? And maybe even why is that important?
I'm thankful you stopped us because exercise is so huge. So let's just talk about the spectrum here. As you mentioned, you outlined it. So if you are stuck on the couch, the biggest suggestion I would have is, if it sounds like a daunting task to go do anything, maybe just go sit outside. Do create baby steps for that, because when you are actually moving your body, that helps to move. I don't want to get too technical, but in our body, there's the lymphatic system. And so that's kind of what helps cleanse out our body and detoxify it. And so that doesn't move on its own. How it moves is through our movement. And so when we're moving around, that can help cleanse the body and get rid of crap that we don't want our body to be hanging on to. And so just movement in general also helps circulate your blood, which helps to energize your brain, to fuel all of your muscles. And so it's just such a beautiful thing that we've been able to do. And it can be on all different extremes of what that looks like for an individual. So yeah, if you're on the side where you just don't feel motivated and can't get off the couch, just trying to figure out what feels realistic for you and moving towards that and creating those baby steps for you. Because if it was me and I was stuck on the couch, I don't want to go to the gym 5 days a week. That's not realistic for my current lifestyle at that time. So it's just assessing your life and being able to figure out, okay, so I sit on the couch for 15 minutes. What if I were to get up and try to walk around the house instead? Or just do something small that is realistic. But if you're on the other side of going to the gym and overdoing it and not giving your body that time to heal, your body does need rest. It does need rest to be able to even recover your muscles. Like, outside of the spectrum of grief, your body needs time to be able to heal and recover from the exercise you did do. And so if you are on the extreme side, I would just challenge you to try to cut back just a little bit, and whether that be within your days, like, again, realistically cutting back, because I know that if you're used to doing an extreme form of exercise and it's 5 days a week, going down to like 2 days a week, you're going to have a negative effect on that as well internally. Like, mentally, it'll be challenging. So just taking those slow steps to figure out what that level looks like for you and what's healthy for you. But movement is just so huge in the recovery process of healing, and especially through grief, being able to help your body just recover and detoxify is huge.
100%. And I always recommend too, like, even just the change of scenery, from, because it's so easy for us to just get in our minds and be consumed by the overwhelming thoughts and things that are problematic. And so changing your, just even going to a different room in your house or going outside, going for a walk with a friend, all of those things are great tools for interrupting those trauma loops, those really upsetting thoughts. And then, yeah, it gives positive effects to your body as well. Like you said, the lymphatic system. I did not know that. So that's good. Always learning something new.
Yes.
I do want to say that Rachel's been a blessing and a gift. She is highly trained and does individualized work with people. So we are going to make sure to list her contact information below. If you're watching this and you want some personalized advice, a personalized plan, some personalized support for your grief recovery journey, your health journey, we will be sure to list her information below so that you can get connected to her, because grief recovery is an individual journey and there's no timeline. It's just your timeline, right? And I know that my goal is to make your timeline as short as possible, right? Like, grief is a very tough thing to get through and to endure, and so we want to do everything we can to shorten that time frame to get you feeling better as quick as possible so you can get back to living a life that you love. I know that that is what we are all aimed for. And so, Rachel, I just thank you so much for being here and for lending your expertise to all of us here that are working through grief and trying to get back to living life.
Yes, it was a joy. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, if you need more information or want more tips or tools, be sure to subscribe and or check out the next video. Until next time, we will see you.